What's going on, guys? My name is Wade with TechDaily. So if you're in the market for a phone with a stylus, you basically have two options right now. The new Samsung Galaxy Note 10, which is a phone that pretty much everybody knows about, and the LG Stylo 5, a lesser known sort of budget device that might just be a decent alternative if you aren't interested in forking over $1,000 or more for a smartphone. In this video, I'm going to compare Samsung's flagship device to LG's offering just to see what you get with each of these phones at their vastly different price tags. Obviously, there are a million other smartphones that might be better options, might offer more value, or whatever the case may be, but I'm looking at these two phones in particular because of their stylus and the features that go with it. Now, both of these phones are relatively new. The Note 10, of course, came out a couple of weeks ago, and the Stylo 5 launched earlier this summer on a number of prepaid carriers, but actually the Stylo 5 is now finally available fully unlocked on Amazon. It was just added this week, and that makes this phone significantly easier to buy for a lot of folks who don't want to deal with the hassle of going through a carrier. And beyond that, I think this makes comparing the LG Stylo 5 against the Note 10 a lot more fair, since of course the Note 10 is widely available on a bunch of major carriers and unlocked as well. So right off the bat, let me just say that yes, obviously, the Note 10 is the better phone. I'm not here to convince you of anything else. If you want the best, it's the Note 10. But let's say that you really want a phone with a stylus. Maybe you like to draw, or you enjoy writing notes. Maybe a stylus is just an easier way for you to navigate the device, or maybe there are certain apps that you like using with a stylus. The real question here is whether or not the LG Stylo 5 is worth anything at all. Should you even consider it based mostly on its stylus abilities alone, or is the Note 10 the only worthwhile device that comes with a stylus? The best way to phrase this question, I guess, would be to ask if the Note 10 at $950 and up is actually 3 or 4 times better than the Stylo 5, which retails between $200 and $300. And that's the question I hope to answer in this video. Before we jump into the stylus debate, I want to be as transparent as possible with the specs and hardware and other things of each of these phones. While the stylus is the feature that we want to focus on, and we will get to that in just a minute, it would be inappropriate to ignore the software, the internals, the cameras, and anything else that you might use day to day with these phones. For example, if the Stylo 5 had a terrible screen or miserable internal specs or was otherwise a barely usable phone by itself, it wouldn't be much of a comparison, but that's not necessarily the case. The Note 10, of course, has the best specs of any phone on the market today. It packs a Snapdragon 855 processor, Adreno 640 GPU, 8GB of RAM, and 256GB of internal storage. The Stylo 5, on the other hand, has the Snapdragon 450 processor, Adreno 506 GPU, 3GB of RAM, and just 32GB of internal storage. These are budget specs to say the least, but performance-wise, I don't think it's all bad news. For the average smartphone user, you're still going to get a smooth user experience with the Stylo, and you can of course load up any apps and games you'd like. Load times will certainly be slower, and as you start to launch more and more apps, the Stylo definitely feels the burden after a while. But side by side, there's not a huge performance difference in-app. It's really only when you start pushing the multitasking and comparing the load times where you really start to see the Note 10 shine. And over the next couple of years, the Note 10 will still have incredible specs, while the Stylo will quickly become outdated. But all in all, you're still getting a very smooth and usable experience from a phone that is significantly cheaper with the Stylo 5. Interestingly enough, the Stylo 5 offers expandable storage via SD card, while the standard Note 10 actually does not, though if you opt for the Note 10 Plus, you'll get that option and even more RAM. And one other interesting thing to note, the Stylo 5 retains the headphone jack, while Samsung finally dropped it on the Note 10. That's certainly not a deciding factor in any way, but just something to mention. As far as the displays, the Stylo 5 and Note 10 actually are both 1080p panels, but that's pretty much where their similarities end. The cheaper Stylo 5 rocks a 6.2-inch IPS LCD panel with a pixel density of about 390 pixels per inch. The Note 10 packs a slightly larger 6.3-inch AMOLED panel at 401 pixels per inch. Now, I don't think it should come as any surprise to say that the Note 10 offers the better, brighter, sharper screen with more vivid colors, deeper blacks, and an overall more impressive viewing experience. But there isn't a whole lot that's that's wrong with the Stylo screen at all. It isn't bad by any means, and although it is just an LCD display, I still think you're getting a great viewing experience. Now, if you opt for the Note 10 Plus, you're really going to see a difference with a massive 6.8-inch 1440p AMOLED display at 498 pixels per inch, and all that is simply beyond comparison against the Stylo 5. Another aspect of these devices that just isn't worth comparing is the camera setup. The Note 10 and Note 10 Plus offer way more, both with the hardware and software. The Stylo 5 has just one single 13 megapixel lens and a measly 5 megapixel front shooter. The Note 10 has a whole bunch of different stuff, including wide angle and telephoto lenses, and Samsung's new depth vision camera on the Note 10 Plus. There are more shooting options, more software features, and just more to offer with the cameras from start to finish. You're going to take good enough pictures and video with the Stylo 5, but obviously the Note 10 is just miles ahead. It's not really worth comparing, and if pictures and video are what you're looking for, the Note 10 is going to be your choice. Finally, one last thing to mention before we jump into the Stylus features: the build quality on both of these phones is pretty different too. While the Stylo 5 is still pretty nice with a metal edge and decent design, the Note 10 is a much more premium looking and feeling phone. You've got glass and metal all the way around. It's heavier, it feels better, it looks nicer, and that's what you'd expect from a $1,000 device. However, I think the Stylo 5 feels better than a $200 or $300 phone. It's still a really solid smartphone, and while it may not have the edge-to-edge screen or super thin bezels and shiny back from the Note 10, there isn't anything about the Stylo that tells me it's some cheap imitation. It's still a great looking phone when you consider the price, and I think LG did a good job with the materials and design. Okay, so let's talk about the Stylus, since that's pretty much the most important comparison we can make with these two phones. That is sort of the selling point and the reason why these phones exist at all, and as far as I know, they're still the only two phones that currently offer them right now anyway. Both of these devices pack a built-in stylus that is housed inside the phone itself, and when you pop them out, they unlock a bunch of different software features that allow you to utilize them. Now, the physical stylus itself on each of these phones is already vastly different. On the Stylo 5, the stylus is basically this metal pointer with a soft rubber tip. That's it. There's no buttons, there's no connectivity, no other function than to tap and swipe on the LG Stylo 5 screen. It's also not a particularly good looking or high quality piece of hardware, if you could even call it that. It's just this sort of metal stick thing, and when you compare it to the stylus from the Note 10, it's sort of like comparing a twig to a fully connected remote control. The Note 10 stylus looks more like a miniature pen. It has an actual design, it has a button that does stuff, and it's actually connected to the Note 10 itself. It has a battery inside and is more of an extension of the phone rather than sort of a generic add-on. It's bigger, it's thicker, it looks nicer, and when you use it, it just feels better in your hand. But let's look past the physical aspects of the stylus for a moment and talk about what they can do on each of the phones. Now, surprisingly, there are a lot of similarities between these two devices when it comes to what the styluses offer. Both of these phones allow you to utilize the stylus as a tool to navigate the OS if that's something you're into. You can flip through pages, interact with apps, type on the keyboard, and do everything your finger might do. Of course, you can also jot down notes and drawings, and they're all saved to the devices. If you prefer to write rather than type, both of these phones will give you the ability to scribble down shopping lists or to-do lists, draw simple pictures, or anything else you might want to write. However, the Note 10 allows you to interact with your notes a little more. Samsung introduced the ability to search the contents of your written notes and also translate writings to text, and that's not something the LG Stylo 5 can do right now at all. Looking beyond just jotting notes down, the Stylo 5 also offers a few other apps and features like a coloring book, which is kind of cute and a nice way to pass the time. There's Draw Chat, where you can draw special messages and send them to your friends. And there's also different screenshot capabilities like GIF capture that's sort of a simple 15-second screen recorder. All those features are pretty solid and an interesting way to utilize the stylus beyond just drawing and writing. However, the Note 10 packs all those features features, and more. You can draw and write, and also quickly jot down things right from the lock screen too, and have those notes automatically saved when you're done. There's drawable messages, of course, on the Note like you'd expect. The stylus also assists in screenshots too, but Samsung also introduced a far more robust screen recorder this time around, and there's also a lot more apps and features like the magnifier to help you see small text, and translations where you simply tap the stylus over a word on the Note 10 and it'll translate it in real time. And since the stylus is sort of a connected object to the phone, you can use the button on the side to launch different tasks like taking a selfie from a distance, for example. That's actually a somewhat useful feature, and it shows Samsung's interest in making the stylus more than just a drawing tool. There's also some impractical stuff that the Note 10 stylus can do, like AR Doodle, which just allows you to draw on real-life objects using the camera. Not useful exactly, but fun and interesting for about 30 seconds, I'd say. And of course, the new Air gestures, where you can wave the stylus around like a magic wand to control apps. Again, not particularly useful, but a cool proof of concept at least. And while I'm not sure any other company or developer will actually utilize this feature, it is still pretty interesting. Overall, there's probably twice as many apps, features, and tasks the stylus on the Note 10 is a part of when compared to the Stylo 5. Are they all useful on the Note 10? No, absolutely not. Are some of them better? Sure, but I wouldn't necessarily say that the Note 10 offers 3 times more stylus value than the Stylo 5, at least when it comes to the apps and things that the stylus goes with. However, the stylus-related deal breaker that might sway you in a certain direction could be the latency and lag that occurs when you write with the Stylo 5. Now, for simply just jotting sloppy notes down, the noticeable lag or delay in the line you're drawing when compared to where the tip of the pen isn't really that bad, but if you like to be as precise as possible, if you're trying to draw something detailed or even just color in the lines, I think you're going to struggle with the Stylo 5. It isn't all that smooth, it's far from precise, and the delay is very apparent. With the Note 10, you're getting a very smooth, very precise writing experience. The tip of the pen is extremely close to the line you're drawing on screen in real time, and that allows you to get very accurate lines and lets you draw and color with more detail. There have been folks who have created legitimate pieces of art with the Note, and you're just not going to get something comparable with the Stylo 5 in my opinion. For the average person scribbling out some notes, it's fine, but for anyone hoping for more, the Note 10 is the way to go. Okay, so with all that out there now, let's see if we can make a fair conclusion. Both of these phones hope to offer that extra writing and drawing experience with the stylus, in addition to some other apps and things. But these devices are so incredibly far apart in price that the Note 10 may simply be unattainable for some folks. If that's the case, is the Stylo 5 truly 2 or 3 times worse than the Note 10? Should you not even consider it at all? In my opinion, I think the Stylo 5 should still be considered as a viable option, both as a smartphone and as a device with the stylus. I think for $200 or $300, you're getting a decent budget device with some features and capabilities that no other phone can offer with that stylus besides the Note 10. If you have an extra $1,000 lying around and you're not afraid to spend the money, the Note 10 is the obvious choice though. But I will say one more thing. The Stylo 5 without the stylus, I don't think is all that great when compared to some other budget phones. Without the stylus, there are some better options out there. If you aren't going to utilize the stylus and the software features that go with it, you probably should buy something else. And I think anyone will tell you that. If you are going to use those apps and things that go with the stylus though, the Stylo 5 isn't a bad buy at all, and I think you'd be happy with it. It's certainly not 3 times worse than the Note 10, and I think it's a decent value all in all. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think of the Stylo 5 and the Note 10 in the comments down below. I'd love to know what you think about these phones and how they compare in your opinion. Also, be sure to follow TechDaily on Twitter and subscribe to the TechDaily YouTube channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys later.